You're listening to the I'm Busy Being Awesome podcast with Paula Engebretson, episode number 232. Hey, everybody. Welcome back to the podcast. If you are listening to this in real time, Happy New Year. This episode literally comes out on New Year's Day 2024. And I'm so honored that you are here on this journey with me as we kick off a brand new year. I am very excited to share this week's episode with you. Okay. I hope you are as stoked as I am because what we're talking about today is a practice that just has me so lit up. It's a practice that I learned about a couple of months ago now, and I have been just obsessed with it ever since. The moment I heard about it, I knew I wanted to make a podcast episode for it and that it would be an awesome one to share as we enter the new year. So today we are talking about the power of creating a yearly playlist as a means of reflection and capturing the essence of your year. Now, I first heard about this idea from my friend Jen several months ago, and she actually talked about it through the practice of creating a playlist for your personal year. So, birthday to birthday. In other words, you might create a playlist for your 32nd year, or your 67th year, or your year of 40. Now, when I heard this idea, it got my wheels turning, and I really started thinking about it through the lens of reflection and New Year's rituals. Because there are, of course, a lot of different ways that we can reflect upon the previous year to really kind of think about what happened and inform our year ahead. But a lot of that is through written reflection, which I love as well. Of course, I have different resources for that too. But when I thought about turning this practice into one that involves music, okay, turning the reflection and learning process into one that incorporates music and essentially creating this musical time capsule for a year, I got super excited and I could not wait to share this idea with all of you. So today we're going to dive into this practice of creating a musical time capsule. We're going to explore why I love this idea of using music so much as a means of reflection and the link between music and emotions and memory and how that plays into our musical time capsule. And then also why I love this practice for ADHD brains and people with ADHD tendencies specifically. And of course, as always, we will have some action steps at the end. And if I don't chicken out, I will also include my year's playlist in the episode show notes in case you're curious and checking it out. I'm not going to lie. For some reason, this feels strangely vulnerable. I mean, I think it's because it's a little bit like sharing my personal journal from the past year with all of you. At the moment, I'm all in. I plan to share it with you, but if rejection sensitivity gets the best of me, I might pull it down between now and then. If so, sorry, but I think you'll get it. Okay. But anyway, if you want to check it out, probably it will be there in the show notes. So let's dive in. Let's talk about this process. And let's start by exploring why I love the idea of introducing music as a means for reflection, both at the end of the year and then also as an exercise of actively capturing the coming year ahead, because we can do this in a couple of different ways. So, first of all, the simple use of music as a means of reflection is an incredibly powerful tool. Music has a really unique ability to evoke our emotions and spark memories. And by revisiting songs from the past year, we often have an easier time reconnecting with the specific emotions that we felt at different moments. So, for example, when I listened to the songs on my playlist that I had played on repeat during my 26-hour drive with Bruno from Massachusetts to Minnesota when I moved in May, it brought up all the different emotions that I was feeling at that time. And it really brought me back into the moment. Okay. So, for the first reason why I really love this is that it has this deep emotional connection and this way of bringing that up to the surface. And that brings me to the next reason why I love using music specifically as a vehicle for reflection. And this is because certain songs seem to serve as time capsules, right? As we were talking about, and they help transport us to these different moments in time, which can both generate this sense of gratitude and nostalgia, but also provide a really powerful opportunity to appreciate your journey and what you've navigated and how much you've grown along the way throughout the 12 months. And I think this will only build upon itself if you make this a yearly practice. If you start capturing your year with certain songs and you can go back to the year of 2023 or 2028 or 2035 and be able to look at those years through the lens of music. I mean, I think that's just such a fun approach to see what you're capturing in that time. Now, another reason why I really like using music as a means of reflection and capturing our experiences is that it often reflects our own growth as we shift. And having a yearly playlist becomes this record of our personal growth and our change. In fact, I've noticed how looking at my music preferences this year and the new genres and the artists that I really kind of leaned into, it helped highlight a pretty big shift in my own evolving identity in the last couple of seasons. For years, the music that you would hear on my playlist was kind of an acoustic folk pop blend. I mean, basically, my playlists were filled with Jack Johnson and Ben Folds and Iron and Wine and Cat Stevens and Dispatch, that kind of style. But this year, my music was completely different. It was almost entirely female-driven artists and different genres that inspire a lot of dance and movement and strength. And it was really fascinating to see how much of a stark shift there was, especially because it wasn't intentional. I wasn't seeking out certain types of music. It's just the stuff that seemed to resonate with me. And there was really this clear shift that happened. Now, similarly, in some situations, the songs in the playlist can also help tell a narrative or tell a story. Now, I don't actually think this is true for every song. It certainly isn't true for every song in my playlist. At the beginning of this past year, I was really exploring dance as a way to kind of move through emotion and transition from work to my end of the day. And it wasn't necessarily the message of the song, but rather it was the feel of the music that really pulled me in and the stuff that made my body want to move, want to dance. But at other times, I did feel a really deep connection with the lyrics, and it seemed to speak to what I was navigating at that particular moment in that part of my journey. So collectively, you have this narrative that's reflecting the highs and the lows and the challenges and the successes of the past year. And it's this really unique and personalized way to document your journey. And I think that's so fun. And then I also think that music offers a really therapeutic quality. And it can, at times, for some people, serve almost as a form of catharsis, okay, for some of us anyway. So when we revisit songs that are associated with challenges or obstacles, it kind of helps us reflect back on how much we have grown, the things we have overcome, and we start generating this greater appreciation of our strengths while also finding some closure and some healing by going back and listening. And again, this isn't the case for everything or everyone, but I did find it to be true for a few of the songs in my playlist. And then also, I think there comes this sense of achievement as well. I don't know if it's going to be a similar experience for everyone, but I personally found that creating my yearly playlist provided this very tangible, creative way to represent my past year. And it created this accessible sense of achievement. So looking back over the past year, it was pretty approachable in terms of just scrolling back through my most listened to songs and the songs that I had intentionally favorited over the past year. And then it provided this sense of completion and this fun win, which of course my ADHD brain loved because it was this quick, fun win that really captured a lot. And then going forward for the next year, the thought of capturing songs for next year's playlist, at least for me, does not feel daunting because I'm just doing it one song at a time. If I'm just listening to music and there's a song that stands out, or I'm pressing play on it quite often or repeat and I'm, listening to the same song over and over, that's just a clear indication that I go, oh, add that to 2024's playlist. And it's just one step. Now, as I'm saying this, my coaching radar brain is going up. So I want to offer a friendly reminder to all of you listening to avoid the spin cycle and do not let perfectionism take over here. Okay, that could be very easy to do. It could be very easy to slip into spinning and perfecting. don't do that. You're going to take the fun out of it. Okay. When I went through the process of kind of looking back over the songs from the past year, because I hadn't been doing it throughout the year as you might going forward, right? I just kind of looked back and did it all at once. But I just went with my gut. I added all of my favorites to my 2023 playlist, and then I went through it once and I weeded out the songs that didn't seem to really fit with the vibe, or I didn't really like them to fit in there for my year, and I called it a day. Okay. But essentially, I love this practice of using music for reflection because it helps to add depth and dimension to this process of self reflection. And it engages multiple senses. It makes the reflection so much more vivid, so much more emotionally resonant. And in my experience, anyway, it contributed to a much fuller understanding of my journey over the past 12 months. Okay, so with that in mind, let's also talk a little bit more about why music specifically is so powerful when it comes to generating memories and emotions, and the way that music really can kind of transport us back to certain places in time. So, first of all, we're working with something called associative memory. And this is where music is really closely linked to our memories, right? Is this process called associative memory. So, when we hear a song, our brains often connect it to the emotions or the events or the people that were associated with that particular moment. And this connection creates that powerful recall of the memory, right? That connection to the music. And as a side note, if you are interested in going down this rabbit hole of the connection between music and memory and emotion and everything, I'll link to a couple of articles. This one specifically is from the Journal of Biology. It's called Music, Memory, and Emotion. I'll link to that in the show notes. And then building on that, we also have neurological connections going on. Okay, so the brain's limbic system, which is involved in processing emotions and forming memories, it can play a crucial role here in the connection between our music and this sense of nostalgia, especially when we are in a highly emotional state. And then additionally, music activates a lot of different regions of the brain. Okay, so the hippocampus and the amygdala and the prefrontal cortex. And it really helps to enhance this encoding and this retrieval of our memories through music. Additionally, music becomes almost this temporal marker, meaning it really helps us create this timeline of our lives. I've alluded to this a couple of different times, right? So when we revisit a song from the past, it acts as this marker in time. It helps us recall not only the specific event that's associated with the music, but also our emotions and the sights and the sounds of that moment, right? It really kind of brings us back. Now, there are many other areas and connections as well. It's beyond the scope of this podcast and this episode. But if you do want to go down the rabbit hole, I will also link to a fabulous episode by Dr. Andrew Huberman on the Huberman Lab podcast. And the episode's called How to Use Music to Boost Motivation, Mood, and Improve Learning. I will link to that in the show notes. I think it's a fascinating episode. Be warned, as always, Huberman's episodes are very, very long. But if you want to go dive in, I think it's a good one. But just to kind of wrap up my points about the connection between music and emotions and memory, essentially, this is this complex interplay of neurological processes and emotional resonance and this associative memory. And music acts as this powerful tool that helps us tap into our past and allow us to relive certain memories and emotional experiences. Now, let's talk about as well why I love this practice so much for creating a musical time capsule specifically, especially at this time of year when so many of us are looking for a way to reflect. Speaking of which, if you're looking for some guided written practices as well, if you do like that type of practice too, I highly recommend checking out first my guided walking meditation and then also the accompanying workbook. So the meditation is on episode 179 of the I'm Busy Being Awesome podcast. It's called New Year Reflection and Expansion. And then you can grab the free workbook at I'mBusyBeingAwesome.com/reflection. And when you use this process, when you go through the questions, it really helps you to discover the power of reflection for an ADHD brain. It helps you celebrate your accomplishments over the past 12 months because I promise you, you have so many more than you can think of just right off the top of your head. It helps you learn from the obstacles that you overcame, and it also helps you plan for an incredible year of growth ahead. So if you really want to go all in, I mean, you could do this reflection while listening to your year's playlist. Or maybe you listen to the playlist on a walk and then you come back and you reflect on the questions. I mean, come on. How fun is that? But again, you can grab the workbook at I'mBusyBeingAwesome.com/reflection or tap through the link in the show notes. All right. So let's talk about why I love this idea of a musical time capsule. Why is this so fun for us? So first of all, it is such a fun way to curate a soundtrack for the last year of your life. And as you add the songs to your yearly playlist, each track becomes this musical representation of specific moments, specific events, emotions you're having. And together they weave this fascinating soundtrack that represents the essence of your life during that particular season of that year. And that's so fun. Now, it also helps to reflect the different shifts in those seasons. Now, potentially, literally, it might reflect the shifts in season if you tend to have different styles during the summer versus the winter or whatever. But certainly, it reflects the metaphorical seasons. As my clients all know, I love to think about the idea of seasons, meaning that there are different seasons of life. For example, these are my priorities for this season, or this is what I'm into this season. I'm going to give it a try for this season. And I think that music can powerfully capture those shifting moods and experiences and seasons, which again offers this powerful representation of your emotional landscape of each period. And then I also like this practice, especially if you're aware of it for the year ahead, right? Of using music to help document significant life events or achievements or milestones. So by including different songs in your yearly playlist, you're able to document and celebrate those important moments so much more easily, which can then help return to those feelings of success or love or accomplishment or joy or whatever it is whenever you hear them. I was even just thinking about how you could use this in a really practical sense as well, in terms of helping you recall specific events that maybe you sometimes have a hard time remembering. And I will give you a very specific example because I think I'm going to start doing this. So I am terrible with remembering the specific concerts I've attended or bands I've seen live. I just cannot remember. Ryan will say, "Remember when we saw the Gin Blossoms at such and such?" And I'm like, no, I don't. This is especially true for the opening bands. I know. I just can't remember that type of thing for some reason. I can remember all the lyrics of all the songs, but I cannot remember seeing them live. But if I added one of my favorite songs from each of the band's set lists or something to my playlist for that year, that would help me recall the groups that I did see live. So again, there's lots of different ways that you could use this approach of creating your musical time capsule, both in terms of recalling different seasons of life and emotional states and moments of growth and challenge and accomplishment, but also practical events and experiences as well. So in essence, it really helps to provide this tangible and deeply personal record that allows you to relive and reflect on the past year. Now, if that's not reason enough, let's also talk about the benefits of this reflection practice, specifically for us ADHD brains and people with ADHD tendencies. So, first of all, the simplicity of this practice, the simplicity of adding songs to a playlist provides a lower barrier entry point. So it allows for greater engagement without kind of overwhelming our brains with all of these multi-step, complex, or super tedious steps. Instead, if you notice that you're playing a song on repeat over and over and over, you just add it to that year's playlist. Simple as that. Or if there's a song that really resonates with you or moves you and you feel it, or it's, really encapsulates an experience you're having, press plus, add it to the playlist. That's it. It's so much lower barrier of entry. Plus, it's kind of this instant gratification as you start building your list, which is also really fun. And then building on that idea, I really love how this practice minimizes decision fatigue. especially if you think about the process going forward into the new year, because all you need to do is decide, do I want to add this song to my playlist? Yes or no. That's it. Now, if you look backward, like I did for this past year, if you look back and you go through all the different music, there are, of course, more decisions to make. It's not just one. Uh, but if you can remind your brain to hold the practice loosely, it doesn't have to be perfect. Just kind of go with your gut. I still think that you can really keep the decisions minimal. Yes or no. But when you're adding songs throughout the year, going forward for the year ahead, it's just one decision at a time. Do I want to add this song? Yes or no? Knowing you can always remove it should you want to if you decide to curate your list at the end of the year as well. Okay, you're not locked into it forever. Don't let your black and white all or nothing thinking tell you you are. You absolutely can shift it if you want to. I also think the immediate nature of the task of adding the song to the list is really powerful in helping us kind of sidestep procrastination or that, oh, it's so much work, I'll just do it later. Again, you hear the song, you tap the plus button on your Spotify app or whatever, and you add it to your 2024 or 2025 or 2030 playlist whenever you're listening to this. Right? This process requires much less demand on our executive functions, which means there will likely be less resistance overall. Now, don't judge yourself if you feel resistance, but generally it's going to be less than something that has multiple steps. Especially if we're comparing it to something like a written reflection. Even if we're just writing a sentence or two, that process requires a lot of different steps. You have to get the materials, you have to think through the question, you have to write it out and answer it, right? So it becomes this much bigger ask of our brain. But adding to your Spotify playlist or whatever music app you use, it's a two-step process. Click the plus button, add it to the playlist. That's it. All of it happens on your phone, which we all essentially have within a 2-foot radius of us at all times anyway. So probably don't even have to get up to do it. And then finally, I really like this practice as well for the brains that are looking for a little bit more structure, because we can do that by turning this into a type of routine. So as we talked about in last week's episode, all of our brains need some kind of structure, but that level of structure varies. Some of us need low levels of structure, others medium, others high. We're all on that continuum somewhere. And if you're a brain who craves a little more structure, you could create some time with a weekly or a monthly routine around scrolling through your recently played lists and adding it to your yearly playlist. I mean, that could be a fun routine to establish. All right. Have I sold you yet? Are you as excited as I am? Let's do a quick play-by-play recap of the steps so that if you want to put this into practice, you can do it right after this episode ends. So let's start with a look back over the past year, if you want to do one for the past year, and then we'll talk about the steps for the year coming ahead. So looking back over the past year, step 1, gather your favorite songs. Okay, scroll through your most listened to songs, pick out the ones that stand out to you, add those to your playlist for the past year. Now, step 1.5, meaning this is totally optional, you could also reflect on specific events in your mind. So if you want to, or maybe you weren't listening to a lot of music over the past year, but you still want to do this, you could take a minute to reflect on some of the significant events or big emotions or challenges or accomplishments and things from the past year in a more traditional reflection way. And then consider the role that music played in your life during that time. Or you could think about what sounds might best represent those experiences. Okay. So if you're thinking, well, I kind of did a lot of podcasts and audiobooks. I didn't really do a lot of music this past year. Not a problem. If you still want to do this exercise, you can think back through a more traditional practice of reflection and then choose music accordingly to represent it, if that sounds like fun for you. Okay. So that was step 1.5 optional. And then step 2 is to curate your playlist. Okay. So go through the list of all the songs you collected in step 1 of picking the ones that really stood out to you. And then you can weed out the songs that don't resonate as strongly with you or the overall vibe for this year. And again, just trust your gut. Keep the process super approachable and simple. It doesn't have to be perfect. Okay. And then step 3, enjoy it. Enjoy your creation. Take time to listen and enjoy that curated playlist and live into those memories and those emotions associated with the songs. It is such a fun opportunity to really embrace the unique narrative that your playlist tells about your journey over the past 12 months. And if you want, I guess this would be step 3.5. If you want, you could share it with someone else as well. Okay, so now let's talk about an ongoing practice for the year ahead. So if you're thinking, I don't think I want to look back, that's a little bit too demanding, but I do want to put this into practice going forward. Or if you want to look back and you want to look forward, step one, how do we do that? First, let it be simple. There is such beauty in the simplicity of adding songs to a playlist. Whenever you discover a new favorite, or you find that you keep tapping replay or it's on repeat, click add to playlist. Don't overthink it. Just add it. That's all. Step two, minimize the decision fatigue. Okay, so focus on one decision at a time. Do I want to add this song? Yes or no? Perfection is not the goal. The process is meant to be something that's fun and enjoyable. Okay, it's low pressure. You can always curate it later if you want to. And then step three, again, this is optional, but you could establish a routine if you're looking for a little bit more structure. Okay, so if you're craving more structure, you might consider creating a routine around reviewing and adding songs to your playlist. It could be a weekly thing or a monthly thing, depending on your preference of structure for your brain. And then step four, use your playlist as a tool for reflection once you reach the end of the year, or frankly, at any time throughout the year. Okay, you can leverage your playlist as that tool for reflection and growth. And you can celebrate your accomplishments, learn from your challenges, and plan for an incredible year ahead. And if you give this a try and you create your own playlist for the year, I would love to hear about it. And I'd also love to hear it. So let me know how it goes over on Instagram. I am at I'm Busy Being Awesome. You can share your experience in the post for this episode or send me a DM. In fact, if you want to share your curated list, please do send me a DM. I would love to hear it. All right, my friends, that's going to do it for us this week. And if you're ready to take these concepts deeper and apply them to your life, if you're ready to learn how to support your ADHD in a way that works for you, I invite you to check out today's show notes or head to I'mBusyBeingAwesome.com/group to learn more about my small group coaching program, We're Busy Being Awesome. If it sounds like a great fit, add your name to the waitlist and you'll be the first to know when the next cohort opens. Also, if you want to learn my simple step-by-step approach to lock in your routine and make it stick, be sure to take my free course, ADHD Routine Revamp. You can tap through the link in the show notes or head to I'mBusyBeingAwesome.com/routine to sign up. Until next time, keep being awesome. I'll talk with you soon.